All right, everyone. The MCU journey continues as we get to the fourth film in the series with the sequel to the highly successful Iron Man 1 with its predecessor, Iron Man 2, once again directed by Jon Favreau, starring Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, and new additions, which is Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard as Rhodey, Justin Hammer, Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, and Mickey Rourke as Ivan Vanko. Now, Iron Man 2 is a very divided movie amongst the fan base in terms of Phase 1 because you either like it or you don't like it. It's often been accused as being just a 2 hour commercial for the Avengers, and when you watch it, it's very hard not to see that because it really is a 2 hour commercial for the Avengers. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad movie, so to speak. I mean, it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form. I remember when I first saw this when it came out, I loved it. Then after many subsequent viewings of the film, as opinions do, they go towards more the sour end of the stick. But uh, but yeah, let's get into this thing. I'm going to do a pros and cons approach to this movie. I think for a movie with a very divided fan base, I think a pros and cons take is the best way to go. So let's get started with the pros. Pro number one, the cast. Everyone in the cast once again turns up, puts on A plus performances. Um, Downey as Downey as Stark once again is great. His character in this movie is given a lot more depth because we find out that the palladium in his chest is actually killing him, and we kind of see that we kind of see the effects that it's having on that it's taking on him, which I thought was pretty good. Pepper Potts in this movie. Um, uh, in terms of the way her characterization is kind of hit and miss. I mean, the performance is fine, but the characterization is hit and miss. But we'll get to the misses later. But in terms of the hits, the relationship between her and Tony is continues to be fleshed out more. And at the end of the film, they officially, you know, go into a stable-ish really, or beginning, or have the beginnings of a stable-ish relationship, which is all fine and good. Don Cheadle as Rhodey is a big step up. I have never really been a fan of Terrence Howard. I find him to be just there in terms of an actor. I never really got into him at all. But Don Cheadle, I actually really like as an actor, and I think that he is more appropriate as playing Rhodey. Um, I just like Don Cheadle's presence. He has more of a military type presence, and he has more of a stern voice when he needs to get serious. And unlike Terrence Howard, who has that soft, lispy voice, which is kind of hard to take serious as a military person. I mean, I think Don Cheadle exceeds him in every way, shape, or form. And unlike Rhodey in the first movie, who was so non-existent that I didn't even bother to bring it to even remember that he was in there because his role is so minuscule in the first Iron Man movie that I really forgot that he played a role, that he was in the movie because he really didn't do much. But in this movie, Rhodey does a lot. Um, he has a lot of cool scenes. One of my favorite scenes with him is the his first scene when he and Downey exchange, and they actually do an in joke on the actor switch when they have the exchange, which I thought was pretty cool. And of course, I love the scene during Tony's birthday party where Tony is drunk as shit, and he and Rhodey have a little fight inside the house, which I thought was pretty cool. I love the scene with Rhodey and Justin Hammer where they're looking through the guns and everything, and Justin Hammer's giving like this bombastic presentation. I just love that entire scene because Sam Rockwell's performance in that scene is great. Sam Rockwell's hilarious, and Don Cheadle's reactions to everything is great because like he has a straight face the entire time, but he has his hands like this, and and I have a feeling that John Cheadle's trying so hard not to laugh because Sam Rockwell's just being a ham, and it's just great. And I also like the end where where War Machine and Iron Man team up to take on the villain Whiplash, which we're going to get into right now, which is Mickey Rourke as Ivan Vanko Whiplash. Um, I'm a Mickey Rourke fan. I love his work, and I was very excited when he was cast as Ivan Vanko in this film because I was like, all right, it's gonna be great. I can't wait to see Downey and Rourke share screen time together. And in their first initial scenes together, they're great. Especially the scene where, especially the awesome racetrack scene where Iron Man and Whiplash have a little fight and then have a big fight, and then we get to the scene where they're in jail and they have that awesome exchange where pretty much Rourke says, compared Iron Man to God, and if you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in you. And I love that exchange between the two, and I love the way that sequence was shot. Jon Favreau did a phenomenal job directing this movie, as he did the first movie. And I just love that scene because it has a very somber tone to it. And Downey is not as jokey as he is in most of his scenes in this film. And Rourke and him have a really good chemistry in that scene as well. And of course, and I also like the chemistry between Rourke and Sam Rockwell. They have funny band. They have a lot of good comedic bantering with one another. Where Rockwell's all like, "Oh, Ivan," and Ivan's just like, "Listen, man, don't get too attached to things." I like that whole thing. All right, so yes, so that Pro number 1, the acting is good. As I said in Pro 2. Majority of the action is good. Pro number 3, as I also mentioned, parts of the story is good. Now let's get on to the cons, and the cons are pretty prevalent. Number 1, this really is a trailer for the Avengers because you shoehorn in the Black Widow, and she's really just there to me as fan service because she doesn't really serve the story. You could have taken her out and replaced her with Hawkeye. It would have still been the same movie. All you had to do is get rid of the whole sexual thing, and it was still made no difference because Black Widow does not play that huge of a role in this movie. She is literally just there. The same thing with Samuel L. Jackson. The only thing Samuel L. Jackson does that's prevalent to the story is give Stark a suitcase with his dad's old merch in there, films and maps and shit like that. So, Nick Fury doesn't really play much of a role either. He's just there to be like, join the Avengers. And Natalie's just there like, I'm with Fury, join the Avengers. So yeah. Avengers trailer it is, and it does really affect the overall story of the movie because it makes it really lopsided because do you want to be your own thing or do you want to set up this movie? You can't it's very hard to balance out certain things and something has to get deleted. Since you're telling a standalone story, you have to get rid of that whole Avengers crap. Keep it in the background. Don't have it service your story. But in this movie, unfortunately, it serviced the story, which kills it. Point number 3. The villain. As much as I love Mickey Rourke, his villain plot is convoluted as hell. His first plan was to break Stark, which he did. And then all of a sudden he wants to kill him, which he fails to do. And his climactic battle is anticlimactic because there's not much of a final battle. When Iron Man and War Machine team up, they take out Vanko within a matter of seconds. And I'm scratching my head being like, really? They fight drones, and then when they finally get to the big boss, they take him out within a matter of seconds? That's bullshit. It's stupid. I hated it. So yeah, number 2, weak villain. As I said, number 3, an Avengers trailer, and number 4, it has lopsided tone. Where Iron Man 1 was able to balance out its seriousness with his comedy, this movie, it's so lopsided because there are certain parts of the movie where it's taking itself seriously, and then there are other parts of the movie where it's just being goofy. When I'll give you an example. There's one scene in the movie where Stark is watching a film of his dad. And, you can see the emotion and expression in Tony's face that he's feeling something genuine there. And then in the next scene, he's complaining to Pepper about this seesaw thing is annoying me. Get rid of it. I'm like, guy, you just had an emotional breakthrough with your pops. Now you're complaining about something and trying to make it funny. It's not funny. It's kind of dumb. And then there's and even though I do like the comedic banter between Hammer and Vanko, it really is, you know, bleh. Because in every scene leading up to that, Vanko is just like this brutish badass who is pretty much Stark's equal in terms of knowledge. And then of course, everything up until his break out of prison, he's like a badass. And then when he and Justin, then he goes from being a badass to being like this comedian in a way. Still maintaining his character essence, but still like you weren't cracking jokes earlier, guy. When you were killing Tony, you were ready to kill this man. What happened? And then we get to, and then another problem I have with this movie is God damn it! I just lost my train of thought. My train of thought just left my mind. Oh yeah, Pepper, right? Pepper. As I said before, in terms of acting, Gwyneth Paltrow did a good job, and in terms of certain aspects of the relationship building with her and Tony was done really well. But Pepper is made to be very clueless in this movie for some reason, because throughout the entire movie, Tony is dropping hints that he is dying of palladium poisoning, and it is going over Pepper's head like a frisbee. She has no idea that this man is dying, even though he's giving her clue after clue after clue after clue, and she's just oblivious to the whole thing. Like, she does not find it weird that he's making her the CEO. He does not. When Tony tries to explain something on the plane, she just balls him out. And she's like, ah. So it's like, on one hand, Pepper's actually a cool character because at the end she kind of redeems herself by helping Tony out and getting Justin Hammer in jail. But on the flip side, she's made to look like a clueless dumbass. It's kind of insulting to the character because in the first movie she was not a clueless dumbass. She was actually a pretty cool character. But in this movie they kind of got away from that a little bit, which is kind of annoying. And as I said earlier, Scarlett Johansson, though she was good as Black Widow, did not serve the story and was just there for eye candy, in my opinion. And though she did have an okay fight scene, I'll give her that. Okay, so that is my pros and cons approach of Iron Man 2. I think with all said and done, I'm going to give this movie a solid 7 out of 10 because it does maintain that charm from the first movie. It does expand upon certain things and does it fairly well. In spite of everything, I do like the character of Whiplash, even though he was wasted at the end. But, the character building I do like. Don Cheadle as a War Machine is a big plus for me because Rhodey got screen time and you had a much better actor. And he and Downey have a natural chemistry, unlike Downey and Howard. So that's a big plus. And of course, the Avengers, being in an Avengers trailer does hinder it a lot because it focuses more on trying to be a setup movie than it is trying to be its own self-contained story. But when it is a self-contained story, it does have a lot of mishaps. And that really does bring down the grade tremendously because you got to be more tighter with that sort of thing. But like I said, 7 out of 10, still find it enjoyable. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again next time for another review.